But there was a ban on the printing of the Qur'an for 300 years. Why? People who are not qualified will start to teach and preach the Qur'an, and they will misuse it, they will misinterpret it. People playing Qur'an but not listening to it attentively. In the taxi, in a restaurant, in the street, you'll hear the Qur'an being played, but it's just background noise. This never existed before radio. The Qur'an is now in an app in your pocket and in my pocket. But there's a fundamental problem. For centuries, the Qur'an was being written, memorized, passed down person to person, until something happened which changed the history and the future of how we relate to the Qur'an. In the 15th century, Gutenberg invents something called the printing press. Boom, this is unprecedented. Instead of having to pay a scribe to hand copy a book over 6 months, you can now press a button and the book is printed in a day. Did the Muslim world accept and welcome this new technology? No. For 300 years, the ulama of the Ottoman Empire refused to allow Islamic and Arabic books to be printed. Now, this is strange because Muslims were never averse or anti-technology. Muslims learned paper making from the Chinese very quickly. When gunpowder was invented, it was quickly taken and it was quickly developed. But specifically the printing press, books were printed in the Muslim world, but there was a ban on the printing of the Qur'an and religious book for 300 years. Why? A famous author by the name of Marshall McLuhan has a very beautiful point. He calls it the medium is the message. If you're serious about having a relationship with the Qur'an, make sure you download the Tarteel app and give it a go. Hide the ayat, recite, and it will correct your mistakes. But let me give you an analogy. Imagine I told you that you're allowed to eat anything you want, but you have to eat it through a straw. You would only be able to eat soup. Or if you had something more solid like meat or something like that, you would struggle to take it because of the medium that you're taking the food, the straw. It filters for a certain type of food. For example, today, if I tell you, you should learn the Qur'an only on TikTok. Are you ever going to learn anything deep about the Qur'an? Anything complex? Anything sophisticated? Of course not, because the medium is a 10, 15, 20-second reel. You're never going to go beyond that. The medium restricts what can be conveyed. And so, similarly, with the printing press, the fear was that for centuries, the access to the Qur'an, its memorization, its teaching, the physical print was not accessible to everybody. But you had to go on a journey, a face-to-face journey of learning from a teacher. You'd have to take it letter by letter, word for word. The Prophet ﷺ says, تَسْمَعُونَ وَيُسْمَعُ مِنْكُمْ وَيُسْمَعُ مِمَّنْ سَمِعَ مِنْكُمْ. This golden rule of the chain, the isnad, that the Qur'an is passed from person to person. And you have to come and sit with me and spend a year with me to take the Qur'an from me. It was a difficult and arduous process. So the people who would memorize, who would recite, who would take the Qur'an were people who had gone through a process of cultivation, of nurturing, of development, of sitting face to face with a teacher. When this ended and the printing press came, there was a fear that anybody in the world will take the Mushaf and do whatever they want with it. They will take a Qur'an and they will misuse it, they will misinterpret it, they will misspread it. People who are not qualified, not authorities, will start to memorize and teach and preach the Qur'an, and they have no background to do so. They don't have the credentials to do so. And so, protecting the Qur'an from this medium and delaying it was a way of preserving something sacred, which was the medium, the way of taking the Qur'an. طريقة التلقي. In the 18th century, Ibrahim Mutafarriqa, a young man in the Ottoman Empire, convinces the powers to be that they should start printing the Qur'an and religious texts. They put a whole lot of rules around it to make sure it's verified, it's authentic, etc. And the Qur'an begins to be produced en masse and printed en masse. This is a fundamental switch in how people start relating to the Qur'an. All this time before this, the Qur'an was primarily an oral tradition. It was recited. It was a qira'ah. It was something recited, memorized primarily by listening from person to person. But now it became something where you would wake up and somebody's given you a book in your hand. There's no person. There's no recitation. It is letters on a page. This is a fundamental shift in how people started to perceive the Qur'an and how people started to learn and relate to the Qur'an. This created a world where the Qur'an was not taken from a human being, but it was taken from a piece of paper. You'll note that in the early days when Uthman ibn Affan sent 7 masahif, 7 physical copies of the Qur'an to 7 districts, with each physical copy he sent a real person, because the Qur'an cannot be conveyed really and effectively and cannot be taught without a human conveying its contents, teaching, nurturing, cultivating its meanings into people's minds. Now, a second shift happens. In the 19th century, you see the dawn of radio. Now the recitation of the Qur'an is not something you have to go somewhere to hear, but it's something that can be broadcast throughout the country. Again, there is resistance from Muslim scholars. They're worried about what the repercussions of this are. When you change the medium, how will it change how people listen to the Qur'an? Because of radio, we now have background Qur'an. People playing Qur'an but not listening to it attentively, not listening to it intentionally. The Qur'an just becomes noise. In the taxi, in the street, in a restaurant, you'll hear the Qur'an being played, but it's just background noise. This never existed before radio. Before radio, to recite the Qur'an, you had to sit and get into a sacred state and do wudu and start to recite from the bottom of your heart. It couldn't be background noise. But the positive part, Sheikh Muhammad Rifat, the famous Egyptian reciter, becomes the first person to recite the Qur'an on radio. It is blasted across Egypt. And very soon the entire Muslim world is listening to the Qur'an. What it opens up is accessibility. Now, no matter where you are, you can listen to a quality recitation of the Qur'an like Mahmoud Khalil Husari, may Allah have mercy on him, or Muhammad Rifat, may Allah have mercy on them both. You can listen to speeches, to talks, to learn. Suddenly, the ground is leveled, and access to the beautiful recitation of the Qur'an is not limited to people who are in certain circles or certain cultures or certain backgrounds. Now anybody can press a button and can listen. But with accessibility comes its harms. A third shift comes. The shift that we are living now, the digital revolution. The Qur'an is now in an app in your pocket and in my pocket. But there's a fundamental problem. It's competing with 10 other apps. The average person uses their mobile phone for about 6 hours a day. How much of that is the recitation of the Qur'an? Open up your settings on your phone, go to your screen time and check. I've looked at the screen for 6 hours a day. How much of that was the Qur'an? The Qur'an is now an app. It's not a person conveying something recited and something timeless. It's not a text, a physical text that took time to write and hand copy and beautiful ornate illustrations and drawings and calligraphy. It's not something hard to access that also has its preciousness. It's now so accessible. For many of us, that's the question. Has the Qur'an lost its value because it's on everybody's phone, on everybody's app, and we barely look at it once or twice a day? There are parts of the world today where they still have to memorize the Qur'an without a printed Mushaf or a mobile application. In vast swathes of West Africa, in East Africa, they still have to write the Qur'an on ink on a flat surface, a lawh. They then wipe what they have memorized and they start again. They never access a physical copy of the Qur'an. Go and talk to one of those children and ask them what this ink, what this lawh means to them. It's something deep, it's something sacred. As the medium through which the Qur'an is recited and taught changes, has the way we think of it and we relate to it, has that shifted as well? Revelation is revelation, but the way that we interact with it has deeply shifted. Now the question is for you and me, how is it that Muslims should react to this? Should we resist the change? We can't. The change is coming. The mediums will keep shifting. There's more to come. But the question remains, should we not own, design, develop, and regulate these mediums? Should we not be the one designing, developing the apps, the hardware, the phones, the operating systems, rather than inheriting something which somebody else has designed, and it's been designed for the Qur'an to be one of 100 apps. It's been designed for the Qur'an to be sidelined. It's been designed for the Qur'an to compete for your attention. Should we not own the platforms? Should we not build the tech? Should we not own the hardware? Should we not make the Qur'an central in this stack, in this medium, from start to end? If we own the narrative, then the Qur'an can become central. Allah says, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We revealed this remembrance and we will protect it and preserve it. But what does it mean to preserve the Qur'an in a very digital age? I'll leave that with you to think about. And next episode, we're going to talk about the dangers of what's to come. We'll talk about AI, deep fakes, and the metaverse. And what does that mean for revelation? See you next time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for listening to this episode. As you know, only 5% of people who watch this video actually subscribe to the channel and support the work that we're doing and keep up with the beautiful content that's here to come. So make sure you subscribe before you close this tab.